That's updated. Get the monkey butt back in frame. There we go, a little monkey butt. Okay, everybody. Hey, welcome. Here's a problem. It's a Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. Bear market's incoming. I think everybody's starting to prepare for it. You knew it was coming simply because Jim Cramer said that the market had bottomed out. So you know it's going to plummet. Home mortgages hit 5% interest rate for the first time since 2011. This means that the average mortgage goes from like $2,400 to $2,800 on a $500,000 house, which is the median home price across the U.S. right now. Also, mortgage-backed securities and commercial mortgage-backed securities are at all-time lows, or not all-time lows, the lowest since 2009. We've got food security issues. We've got corporate debt problems. We've got inflation. We've got expensive fuels. We're just, woo, yeah. Oh, make sure my mic's working. Mic is working. Okay, boom, there we go. Okay. Last time I updated, the mic wasn't working, and then I talked for like half an hour, and then I looked down, and it was just all the chats where your mic's not working. So it's working. We're good. And yeah, GameStop, GME just kind of while everyone kind of figures out what they're going to do. I have no idea where the tickers are going in the near future, because I think folks are just trying to figure out what's going on and what plan they can come up with to try and save their various hedge funds. So there we go. But do I have anything else to add, dogs? You guys all jumped out of screen in a hurry today. That's all I got. So might as well jump into your questions and see what we go on here. Yeah. Okay. Tom Zock, hello from Germany. Well, hello from the U.S. Dan Summit, Cosmic Lightning Warrior on today. Make sure to say hi, Infinite Risk. Yeah, I'm going to be on with Cosmic Lightning Warrior at 4:30 my time, 7:30 East Coast. So this, as a result of the stupid updater happening, took like 20 minutes for that to update. I'll have to come off here in about an hour, 15 hour and 20, so I can get ready to go on to his show. I'll tweet out the link for it. Otherwise, just look for Cosmic Lightning Warrior on YouTube, and he'll probably be on there. Okay, so Ryan Albertson, what's up, bro? Nice shirt. This is a good shirt, isn't it? Sunsets. Got ourselves some hibiscus and palm trees. Can't go wrong with that. And Koa buttons. Okay, George Mendonca. My tax guy had a Citadel employee come in this year. His cost basis was just shy of $1 trillion. Not a typo. My tax guy denied him service. Tax guy. I'm not going to deal with that. Okay. JL 2021. Hey, Houston, question. If there is concern about a non-legitimate MMTLP shares not paying a dividend, wouldn't registering them with their transfer agent, not computer share, I believe, ensure a divvy? Not a clue. Maybe, perhaps. But not being able to pay out that dividend means liquidation. So that's what's going to cause stock prices to go up is that liquidation. If they can't pay out and they don't pay out, then they get liquidated by the brokers. That's the way it's supposed to work anyway. We'll see if it actually does. But yeah, I guess you could register all your MMTLP. I have no idea who the registration agent is for metamaterial. If anyone knows, throw it in there. We'll see. Forest Fire. Houston, do we need to do anything to our Fidelity accounts in order to not get screwed over in any way? Account setting as reinvest security via cash equivalent. I mean, you can do the reinvest security. You should get the shares. That's what those brokers are set up for. They do it all the time. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Maybe if you get some weird apps that you're using and they aren't like legit big time brokerages, that might be the case. But I'm not too worried. I do have my Fidelity set to reinvest in security anyway. because what few blue chips I have, when those send out their 70-cent dividend or whatever, it just buys more, whatever. Okay. Maniacal. I remember when experts were saying in 2007 that if U.S. banking system fails, the whole world will stop trading in dollars. Hey ho, here we hear again. Yeah, we can't allow the banking system to fail, and the government won't allow the banking system to fail. They will do whatever they can, whether it's straight up printing cash or creating weird 100-year bonds or something. They will. They'll make sure the banks have money, because you can't operate an economy without the banks providing credit. And if the banks can't provide credit and move that liquidity through the market, then that's it. The market can still exist without market makers, because people still buy and sell and trade, but they cannot exist without lending. You need people to borrow money to buy cars, to buy houses, for credit cards, for payroll, for expansion of their business, for remodels, you need credit. You need credit for everything. The entire U.S. government relies upon short-term credit for every contractor that provides something for them. We need the bond market to be able to flow, and so that people can invest their money into municipal bonds and corporate bonds. So we need this money. We need it to flow. So if the banks are in trouble, then the banks are going to get bailed out. They may let, one here and there die or get gobbled up, get their assets gobbled up. But as a whole, we can't really lose any more investment banks. Matter of fact, we probably need more of them. We need to make it so that we don't have as many large banks, so that we can let small ones fail a lot more often. But we need banks. Store Bank 001. What is the coolest U.S. weapon we have that makes China and Russia null? Oh, man. I'm not quite a weapon guy. Coolest U.S. weapon that makes China, Russia null. I mean, probably the internet. They are on a U.S. invented system that we probably still control at a very root level. You'll notice that we get hacked by Chinese and Russians all the time, but the U.S. doesn't really hack anyone. The last time I heard about possible U.S. hacking was a virus that got into all the centrifuges in Iran and basically destroyed all of their centrifuges. The U.S., I think, saves all the really nasty stuff for when we actually need to use it. Whereas Russia and China are constantly pestering and stealing and doing all these things. So we learn their capabilities pretty quickly. They have no clue what U.S. cyber technologies exist, because we never use them. And we gobble up white hats and black hats like crazy and have them working at the NSA and CIA and everywhere else. And we just don't let them know what we're capable of, because we don't do petty little things to learn our tricks of the trade. So I think if Russia were to, say, dip a toe into World War III and challenge NATO in a way that would be seen as unavoidably bad, they launch a nuke or they try to invade Poland or whatever, then we would finally unleash the full might of U.S. Hackers on the systems of Russia. And I wouldn't doubt if we have an off switch for ICBMs or something, because not only can we get into those systems, but the people who control those systems are also hackable, in that they get paid dirt and we can buy their loyalty really easily. So we may have a lot of folks already on the inside that are human assets that will give us access to things. So, because we've got a lot of money and Russia doesn't. So if they're paying some tech works at an ICBM facility, $100 a month we can pay them $5,000 a month to do what we want. And they're going to be like, all right, whatever. I don't have to go pick potatoes this season. Awesome. So I think that's probably what we have. Okay. Email address. If you're voting materials, if you got voting materials through your broker for GME previously, does that indicate your shares are authentic and should be eligible for the dividend? No. You'll get materials if you've got GME in your accounts, and that's it. What would then happen is if they got more votes than shares they issued, then it could be suspect. They could trigger a recall and things like that. But that's all I know as far as that's concerned. You guys are licking yourselves, making noises. That's what's going on. Okay. And I missed a super chat here. Who did I miss? Ryan Albertson, have you heard something? GME record date Friday. That is to be eligible to vote in the shareholders meeting. So if you've got shares in your account by this Friday, you will be, that's the date of record for the shareholders meeting. You can participate in the shareholders meeting. If you do not have shares in your account by this Friday, you cannot participate in the shareholders meeting. It has nothing to do with the dividend. It's just for voting in the shareholders meeting. Joshua Nadeau. Will you be DRSing any of your shares now that you know you only get the divvy if your shares are real? I mean, not really. I mean, you will get shares in your account if you've got synthetics in your account. Because they have to, the short hedge funds have to be liquidated to get you shares to replace those synthetics. Because what they did was they gave you an IOU and not the shares you bought. So you bought shares in good faith. They said they sold you shares in good faith. They told the government that they are not short on these shares. They said that no naked synthetics were created and that they do not exist. So, according to them and their testimony to Congress, you should have the real deal in your account. And if for some reason you don't get a share dividend deposited into your account, your broker is required by law to liquidate the SOB until they raise enough money to put shares into your account. And that's the way this whole thing works, and that's how the squeeze is going to run. Was that a really good ear scratch? Just having an orgasm behind me scratching her ear. Monkey butt. Come on. Get up here. Just get up here. Just get up here. Get up here. Yeah. There you go. You want someone to scratch your ear? Okay. Yeah. There it is. Oh, yeah. Get a good ear scratch. Every dog loves an ear scratch. There you go. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, DRSing is an extra step. I'm sure folks that DRS, they got their shares. Cool. But, it's the folks that aren't DRS that are going to be triggering the MOASS in reality. Because they're the ones whose brokers have to liquidate the short hedge funds to go out and buy those billions of shares they're going to have to buy to cover everything. It's pretty bonkers when you think about it. That upwards of 8 billion shares they have to buy if there really are as many synthetics as they created. And there will only be 530 million shares total, like real legit shares in existence. So not only would they have to buy all the synthetics to delete them, but they would also have to buy all the real ones 16 times over to be able to put into people's accounts. That's crazy. It's crazy to think about. I just want this to be unleashed already. Just raw. I want to wait another 3 months for the fireworks to happen. I want it to be now. But we'll probably get a squeeze in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be when we vote and we pass the increase in authorized shares from 300 million to 1 billion. And that coincides with the board's approval to issue shares as dividend. That's going to result in a ledger, check of the ledger for who has real shares and who has lent out shares and so on. Because the tax liabilities of receiving a dividend as a payment in lieu if you lent out shares, these big institutions and banks that did lending, they're going to have to recall because they don't want to pay taxes on that. They want to be like us, receive those shares, not to pay taxes until they're sold. And so we're going to see a squeeze from that recall, which is going to push the price up. And then the dividend will be handed out, and we'll get a second squeeze, which will be shorts having to cover the synthetics that are in everyone's accounts or close them out, whatever it happens to be. So we might get it in 2 phases, and that's just tits, man. That's just the tits. I love it. Okay. Where are we? Okay. There's the MMTLP question. 2007. William Morgan. Zombie stocks are seller boxed in to prevent them from going to $0, which would force them to cover and pay taxes. It's also to prevent them from rising and being forced to cover. True. Also, if you need them to rise, you can get immediately 100% payback if it goes from, 1/10,000th to 2/10,000ths. That's incredible growth right there. Walter G. Estrada, Houston MOASS aside, how good or bad will the Mariners be this year? And happy, sad Russell Wilson is gone. I'm bummed Russell Wilson's gone, but I don't think he's going to fare much better in Colorado. Problem is that Russell Wilson, talking about football for those of you who don't give a shit about football, Russell Wilson needs a pocket. He hasn't had protection since like 2014, and he's been running for his life ever since. So, he's great at scrambling. He can scramble all over the place, but it completely defeats the ability to actually be a playmaker other than just like winging Hail Marys, because if you're running for your life at all times, you can't spend that time scanning the field, picking your receivers. And so, what Tom Brady has done is he takes significantly lower money than he could in the free market. Guys like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers have taken just huge contracts. And what he did was, he takes $20 million a year, which is a lot, but it's not as much as other football quarterbacks make. And then they go out and they provide an offensive line that is the best in the business. So Tom Brady could set up a rocking chair and sit back there and make all his plays. Your grandma could throw for 300 yards a game with that O-line in front of him. And Russell Wilson wasn't willing to restructure his contract so that the Seahawks could provide him protection. And so he was like, I'm out. So hopefully, clearing up 27 million, 57 million. Well, how much it is that got rid of Brady Wagner too, which is a bummer because Wagner's awesome. But not Brady Wagner. Brady Wagner's a guy I went to high school with. Bobby Wagner. Hopefully they'll invest in some offensive line. I mean, if you got a great offensive line, anyone can be a star quarterback. I could be a star quarterback if I never had to get touched by a linebacker, pass rusher. That'd be fantastic. I could sit back there all day and just lob balls to people. But if you have no protection, you're done. You get injured, you run out of juice. Your receivers don't want to get traded away because you're spending so much time getting yards on the ground rather than throwing to them. So anyway, bummed Russell Wilson's gone because he is a fantastic quarterback, but without being able to pay for an O-line, what are you going to do? As far as the Mariners, if their offense can pick up from what they managed to do last year. So last year they basically hit 200. The entire team was Mendoza line across the board. Kyle Lewis was injured, had another knee injury, so we lost one of our big producers. They picked up some big boppers. They don't quite have the batting average you want to see out of guys, or the on-base percentage, but they can really knock a ball. And starting pitching might still be kind of a wash, but their big problem was the run differential, is that they would win really close games and then get blown out. Win really close games and get blown out. So they ended up scoring 50 fewer runs than their opponents, but still had a winning record somehow. So if they can get some run production going, then they're going to have a pretty monster year, I think. Some of the bullpen has been swapped out, so I don't know how lights out they're going to be this year in comparison. But starting pitching should be improved, and that should at least give the Mariners a fighting chance if they've got dudes that can hit 50 home runs in their lineup. I think they're going to do all right, barring serious injuries from folks. I think it could be their first legit year of going to the playoffs since 2001, which would be nice because it's been a long time, and a lot of bad management since then. So let's do it. Okay, now all of you guys are completely bored of me talking about sports. Welcome to the Spore Report. And moving on. Okay, that was the Mariners question. William Morgan, smart hedge funds buy zombie stocks to increase their assets as needed. When they need to add assets, they pump zombie stocks to a safe price that doesn't cause a squeeze but helps provide value. Yep. Because again, you go from 1/10,000th to 2/10,000ths, you just increase the value 100%. So not bad. And G Font just asked another Mariners questions. There, answered all my Mariners questions. Morgan also says there's over 5,500 zombie stocks that were never covered and closed. Some have been bankrupt for decades. Yep. And if the squeeze comes on, I'm really wondering which one of those are going to pop in weird ways and make us go, huh? American Motors Corporation? I don't know. How a lot of that's going to work. Bat Bones, Houston, thoughts on short hedge funds shorting both MMTLP shares and metamaterial? Will this just make mega MOASS, or do they just have to cover one or the other? If they can't cover one, they'll have to close the other, right? If they can't cover the obligation of their payment in lieu on the dividend for MMTLP, not only are they going to get liquidated and have to pay that, but they'll also have to go out and buy metamaterial stock and return it to the person they borrowed it from or the synthetic that they generated. So they're playing with fire, I think. The short hedge funds really need to stop shorting things. It's their answer to everything, and it's the only play they have because they can't let the price of the stuff actually reflect demand. So if they do that, the jig is up. So as long as they keep shorting it and making their liabilities bigger and 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 bigger, they can kind of win that battle for now. They're basically stuffing as much of their trash from their room under their mattress and into the closet, and eventually they're just going to run out of space they can put all this stuff. You can only sweep other things under the rug until basically your entire house is under the rug, and then you just need a new house. So, yeah, they really have no other strategy. Just short again. Just short it. Just short it again. Okay. Brandon T. Houston, what are the chances after the dividend stock split everybody with synthetics just gets screwed? Historically, everybody except retail seems to be above the law. It's always possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. The problem is if the government screws over retail investors and these activist retail investors who put a lot of liquidity in the market, especially the fact that a bunch of them are from overseas, basically seals the fate of the U.S. markets for generations. People are not going to invest at all into the traditional markets. They're going to find other ways to invest their money, and that is going to be a giant liquidity drain from the markets, and it's going to kill the stock markets for generations. If you are a foreign investor and you have a stock market of your own country that outlaws things like short selling and outlaws these underhanded practices, and you got screwed by the U.S. market, you're going to just keep your money, in Frankfurt or London or Hong Kong. You're not going to waste your time and your fees to invest in the U.S. market if they're just going to screw you over. And so, boom, there goes 40% of investment in the United States. Gone. Like that if they screw everybody over. And so there is not it's not a good plan to temporarily save a few assholes by screwing over tens or hundreds of millions of investors from all over the world. Because as much as those like big whales matter, those big whales are only big whales because of the investment of the little guys. The little guys going in and doing average trades and daily trades, that's where the movement of the market is based. So, and the plan of these short hedge funds, how these short hedge funds make money is they screw over retail. And if they no longer have retail to screw over, they're going to have to turn on their masters. And that's what we saw in 2008 when these investment banks suddenly saw their stock getting shorted. So the companies they had lent margin to were now shorting them. And they ate Lehman Brothers and they ate Bear Stearns this way. And they started to do it to Goldman Sachs before Goldman Sachs managed to lobby the U.S. government to pass a law making it illegal to short financial institutions. So without us to pick on, they're going to turn on their masters because there's nowhere else to go. There's no one else to steal money from. I'm sure there's folks at the SEC, there's folks at the Fed, there's folks at Treasury, the Federal Trade Commission. All these groups know that if they piss off retail enough, retail pulls out forever, and then the banks and the big institutions and the big funds all turn on each other. It becomes cannibalism. They need us. So, they may have to just give us this win, this one time, give us this win, and turn a few of us into whales ourselves, and just to keep the system perpetuating. There has to be a comeuppance at some point for these bad actors, and and there'll be a regime change amongst the trading sphere, and hopefully we're part of it. Yeah. I don't think it's beyond the U.S. capability of printing money at this stage. U.S. can print money whenever it wants. And they'll have to. They'll have to save banks, and there'll be deals made. They'll for sure. There'll be some stuff that gets gobbled up in 100-year bonds to buy out huge chunks of the market that went bad, and then maybe set adrift in weird swaps and whatever for 50 years from now. We may see the U.S. dollar do a reverse split or something to save from runaway inflation. There's going to be lots of weird things happen when this goes down. I can't necessarily predict all the outcomes or all of the symptoms that will come from this sickness we got. That's right, monkey. All right. Okay. Okay, by way of Sanchin, Angels fan here, but very excited to watch Andres Munoz coming off injury, pitch for Seattle. Go baseball. I'm excited for some baseball too. One of the things I like is that I have a T-Mobile phone, which gives me MLB TV for free. We get to watch games from all over. My big beef is they don't let me watch Mariners games and I don't have cable. So I have to go visit somebody who has cable to be able to actually watch the Mariners games, which is lame. MLB TV. Just let people watch the local market games. When I was in college, I was living in Hawaii, but my debit card was from Seattle. And I had to jump through all these hoops to be able to get permission to watch Mariners games on the internet because the card's from Seattle. I'm like, yeah, but my IP address is in Hawaii, man. We don't get Mariners games here. I pay you $125 a year to watch Mariners games. You don't let me watch them. And so eventually they let me do it, but it's a pain. And go through a VPN or something and they'll let me. I don't know. Okay. Connor Nee, hey, Houston, how many days do you think the squeeze will be, and will there be a lot of halts? I think initially there'll be a lot of circuit breakers going. After that, they may just turn the circuit breaker off and let it run. And when we see halts, it's going to be because liquidity dried up, and they need new infusion of cash from insurance or the Fed or whatever. And that is probably where we will see halts. That they're just like, it won't necessarily be a halt. It'll just be like the price is flying, trading computers are gobbling up as many shares as they can, and they just ran out of money. And so everything just went flat. Volume went flat. Price may drop because volume went flat. And then the cash infusion happens and rockets back up again. Buying, and then flat, and it drops. And then another cash infusion and it rockets back up. Buying. That is my best guess. Unless they let the trading computers trade without the cash assets and hope that the T+2 results in cash infusions. Then it might be a little quicker. But yeah, I think it will take weeks to buy as many shares as they need. I mean, the huge volume days in January of last year, I think one day there was like 191 million shares traded in 3 days on GameStop. That is like super duper FOMO, people buying like crazy. If we see volumes like that, and let's go to the calculator. No, not paint. Turn off the paint. There we go. Calculator. So it takes 191 million in 3 days. So that's 63 million shares a day. If that kind of volume, for us to cover 8 billion shares, if that's what the dividend results in, so that would be clear. So that's 126 days. At that volume, it's how long the squeeze would take to cover. Now, we'll probably see volumes above that. So if volumes are 10 times that, right, then we're looking at 2 weeks for that squeeze to happen. So, that's something to think about. Like, we were thinking, okay, so there's 1 billion shares I have to cover. It might take a couple of weeks. Now it might be 8 or 10 times that they got to cover or close. So you have to multiply that by 8 or 10 for the traditional volumes we've seen when the price of the stock has exploded, like it did in January of last year. So I don't think that they're going to spend 4 months on a squeeze on this. I think they're going to want to go a lot quicker than that, which means the price has to go a lot higher, a lot faster to close all this out. This is slow burn, and by the time, the market conditions of a collapsing market, a bear market, assets under management shrinking, them being required to close these things out and liquidate everybody to just figure out what the hell is going on and get to like a fresh start, that 126 days is going to be too long. So I'd expect to see volumes well beyond that. We're talking, there's 76 million shares in existence of GameStop. We'd probably have to see volumes of 500 to 600 million a day for this to be closed in any reasonable amount of time. And that is a lot. That is a lot, man. A lot. So think about that. Put that in your brain. Oh, motherfucker. Son of a... Turn off the intro. Scrolling up, and I'm realizing you little bastards didn't say turn off the intro anywhere up here. I made it pretty far through here. Turn off the intro. Reminder. Okay. It's under the chi. Serenity now. Okay. It's off now, so you're not getting a third one. Okay. Where was that question that I was working on? And now my brain is gone. Michael Steegs, Houston, don't you think the hedge funds will prefer giving money over shares? In that case, it's in their interest to short the price of GME down as much as possible. Well, the only ones that could give money to are those who lent their shares. If you are on a cash account and you bought shares in good faith and ended up being a failure to deliver, so there's a synthetic in your account, you are owed shares. So they aren't going to be able to give you cash in lieu of those shares. Now, if you are an institution who lent out your shares, the hedge funds can give you cash instead. The problem is that cash is immediately taxable at 37% and not untaxed like the shares would be, which is why those institutions are probably going to do recalls of all the outstanding stock that they lent out before the dividend, because they want those shares too, because they don't want to pay taxes on that stuff. That's probably what we're looking at there. So, yeah. So they can try to short the price down as much as possible. Remember, if they're shorting the price down, they're creating synthetics, which means they're increasing the liability they have in the end. So they may be looking at, oh, hey, if we can keep these stocks at max pain every Friday and a whole bunch of options don't go in order, it might be cheaper for them to short 5 million shares than it is to have 10 million shares go in the money. Because that's 10 million shares, they got to figure out where to come from. So they may be looking at it right now as like, okay, if we can short this price and keep it at 150 for max pain every Friday, then that's fewer shares that we'd have go in the money if the price were able to rise to 200. They can only do that for so long because there is going to be a share recall. And when that happens, the price is going to go nuts. So everything they're doing is surviving the day and not thinking about 2 or 3 months in the future. They just need to survive today and then work tomorrow to survive the next day. That was kind of that really long-winded speech that Ken Griffin did when he was in trouble back in 08, 09 was basically our people came in every day and figured out how to survive that day, and then we did it all over again the next. And that's kind of the mode I think they're in right now, is each day they're trying to survive. And, why? Because they're probably trading a bunch of warlord money and offshore scary mafia billionaire money and drug dealer money that have been hidden in all these Cayman accounts that then get reinvested into hedge funds. And that's, they don't want to lose those guys their money, because you lose those guys their money and you lose your life. So, yeah, that's where they are. Okay. Crispy 101 Houston, it looks like the dead might be rising from the graves. I have old, long, delisted OTC stocks that all of a sudden have a $0 value and can be traded via my brokers. 188 number. Interesting. Huh. Unico has been delisted in my account for over half a decade. Maybe the next source of water for hedgies. Huh. That's something to look at. Interesting. If anyone else have any weird OTC stocks that they lost on big time, I'd be curious to hear about that. My last few that I had a USAA brokerage, and then Schwab bought USAA, and USAA closed out all of my old dead terrible penny stock bets I'd made 2009 or whatever. And so I got like a $5 check for the 2 million shares I had of various penny stocks. So I have no idea how those ones are doing, like Nortel and Washington Mutual and stuff like that. I'd be curious to see if those are also bouncing back from the dead. B. Miles, are the short stocks affected by GME squeeze? I think so. I mean, think about it like, let's draw a picture. I like drawing pictures. We can go to picture drawing again. I drew pictures the other day. Let's just file, new. There we go. Don't save. We don't care about that. Okay, so we have assets under management, and we have margin, right? This is actually more dramatic because this margin should be 30 times larger than the assets under management. But if this gets too big, right? If this gets this much too big, they're forced to sell off this stuff to close that, right? Okay. or they have to raise cash or whatever to increase their assets under management, make them bigger to cover that 30-to-1 ratio. Now, if this thing gets like out of control and let's go down here. So we have assets under management and we have our 30-to-1 ratio, and all of a sudden the price on something that's margin shoots up crazy big, right? And they have to liquidate everything. Like you get liquidated of everything to cover this much of it. Okay, that still leaves this much, this much that needs to be covered, right? You got this huge amount here that needs to be covered. And who's responsible for that? Well, prime brokers, investment banks, and insurance. They're going to have to pay for that stuff because there's now no assets whatsoever that can back up any of these plays. So if there's Blockbuster and Bed Bath & Beyond and Washington Mutual and Bear Stearns and AMC and Nokia and I don't know, Plantier and Rocket Mortgage and Coss and everything else in here, when this stuff's going to have to get closed as well, because right now it's just a giant liability. So the price on everything skyrockets because they got to close positions to get rid of that margin. So that's why all this stuff is basically in these giant baskets of liability. And for my crappy drawing, there you go. All right. Meow meow. Do you think the Biden administration knows about this, oblivious, or do you think they're in communication with SEC about it? I think it's hard not to be aware of this stuff at the moment. We are very loud, and the SEC, from their announcements, along with the DOJ and on the criminal investigation side, I think they know full well what the liabilities are. Will they do anything about it before it's too late is the question. And I don't think so. I think, in game theory, there's strategies like Ukraine war. Putin is backed into a corner and he's going to have to escalate because he can't be seen losing face and losing to a smaller country, especially when all of his power rests on the fact that he has power. And if everyone sees like, wait a minute, Putin is really weak and vulnerable, which means anybody can take control of Russia if they want to, he's going to have to escalate and use worse force. Now, the prudent thing in game theory would be, okay, attack him while he's weak. Be done with it because we're going to be facing him anyway, so we may as well handle it now than face it later. The problem is, politically, you don't want to be the president who sends a bunch of soldiers into Ukraine as a NATO contingent and then pissing off Putin so that he escalates sooner. You would rather him escalate first and then go in than be the one who goes in and has him escalate, because politically it'd be bad for triggering that escalation that was inevitable anyway. The same thing with the SEC is if the SEC all of a sudden closes dark pools and bans naked short selling for everyone, then the stock price on everything skyrockets because all of a sudden that liquidity that market makers are providing to basically suppress stock prices no longer exists, and MOASS happens and the market collapses. So, they'd rather let the bad decisions of these short hedge funds for the last 30 years bite them in the ass and have the market collapse and then come in with these new rules that stop this stuff. Going, we did a post-mortem. We discovered that there was all this naked short selling. They had told us for years they weren't doing it, but apparently they were. So we're going to put a stop to that. The prudent thing is to do it now, if it's going to collapse anyway. The political thing is hands off so you don't get the blame for it, and then go in and make the new rules. And so everyone's going to look at it from a political perspective and not from the prudent thing to do perspective, because the prudent thing to do, you will be blamed for it, right? Like, no one wants to pay for maintenance because maintenance is expensive, but when things break, it's even more expensive. But they can always come up with money for that. No one wants to spend $30 million improving the levees around New Orleans, But when New Orleans gets destroyed by Katrina, we have to spend $500 billion to repair the entire city. No one wants to spend $25 million on a pandemic response team in the U.S. aid program to stop pandemics before they happen, but we will spend $20 trillion when the global economy fails because we didn't stop a pandemic before it happened, right? So we're stupid. We will never do the prudent, responsible thing because that costs money now. You know, check engine light comes in your car and you're like, I don't have money for like repairs right now. And then the engine dies and explodes and you go, oh crap. Now it's going to be like, I got to buy a new car. So we look at these things in just the dumbest ways possible. Whereas if you just did like, did you guys ever read the Toyota method? It's Toyota method, Toyota way. Shoot. Wait, one sec. I can't remember. Oh, gotta turn my Chrome on. Where did my, how come you're not giving me my, that's not it. What the heck, man? Sorry, my Chrome extension here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Wait. No, my Chrome. Oh, there it is. Okay, finally. Sorry. That wasn't working. Okay, so it's a Toyota. Oh, man, it's a while ago I read this book. Remember Toyota method? What's the Toyota way? That's what it is. Okay, so this book here. It's management tips. Just give me the book. Just give me the god dang book. Toyota way. There we go. Okay, so in this they detail when Toyota took over the Fairmont, California plant from GM, and General Motors. They had some problems with that plant. People were like drinking on shift, doing drugs, having sex in the bathrooms. Just, it was bad. There were like gangs. There was all sorts of things. And basically GM was producing the worst cars in the world out of this plant. So they'd have problems like a Buick Riviera front end would end up on a Monte Carlo. No one would care. An engine would get put in backwards. No one would care. And these things get shipped out to dealerships, and then people would buy complete lemons and go, what the fuck? And it's coming out of this Fairmont plant. And they were going to close the Fairmont plant, but then the United States put a rule on imports that if companies wanted to import cars in the United States, a certain percentage of them had to be made inside the United States. So Toyota and General Motors struck this deal that Toyota could produce cars out of this plant in Fremont, California, that they could stick Toyota badges on or Geo badges on. So like the Geo Prism was really a Toyota Corolla, things like that. And what they did is they went into that factory and they fired everyone, fired every single solitary person at that factory, and they started making them reapply for their jobs and come back. And the American way of doing things was if there's a mistake, you just, the assembly line kept coming. So you just had to let that mistake go on into the future, and the next thing would come along and do the next bit. Toyota put a stop to that. They said, if there's a mistake, you push this button, the entire line stops for the whole factory, and you fix that problem. And the Americans were like, why? Why? Because it made the cars work, right? And they would do tests. They would, let's say you have to drill a hole into a piece of sheet metal all day long with this drill bit. And they would do a test with that drill bit. And they'd say, okay, we did a test with 50 drill bits. They all failed between 39,000 and 41,000 drills. So what we're going to do is every 37,000 holes that get drilled, we're going to automatically swap out the drill bit. And so they had this preventative maintenance program that was revolutionary according to the Americans. And that Fremont plant went from producing the worst cars in the entire world to having the highest quality standards of any factory in the United States and producing basically the best cars that they could. Because that preventative maintenance ended up saving so much money in the end, right? Like if you're going to save $30 million on levee repairs when it's going to cost you $500 billion not to do those levee repairs. If you look at the math that way, oh, I should probably repair those levees and save myself $499,970,000,000, right? So it's a fascinating book to read about if you want to know about like basically the cost savings of preventive maintenance and not waiting for catastrophes to happen. You start to think about things like climate change differently. You're like, oh, well, if we spend $1 trillion now to mitigate climate change, then we won't spend, $250 billion 15 years from now from the problems that climate change causes. You think about these things in a very different way. So, yeah. So that's Houston's book recommendation of the day right there is The Toyota Way. Read it, grow your brain some wrinkles, and yeah, there you go. Does that work for you? Works for me. Okay, I think I missed a couple of super chats while I was ranting about Toyota. Let's see here. Another meow meow. What do you think Ken Griffin is doing behind the scenes to stop the squeeze? He must be up to something. We're waiting pathetically for the inevitable. Ooh, that's a good question. I try to picture what it is they're doing, and I think what they're doing is that buying another day. Is that they're going to try and force these stocks to all close at max pain every Friday because they cannot afford to have a gamma ramp happen. Beyond that, I don't know. There may be squirrely debt swaps going on where they will swap a bunch of, like, basically make a sacrificial lamb, right? Let's just say Melvin is a sacrificial lamb. They go to Melvin, they go to Cohen at Melvin, and they're like, hey, buddy, you're going to die. And we're so sorry, but you're going to have to be the fall guy. So we are going to do crazy swaps where you take everyone's debt, all these hedge funds, all these market makers, we're going to shove the debt onto you, and you are going to get obliterated. The rest of us will go, oh, not so sad, oh no. We'll make sure that you get a job or, golden parachute or something, but Melvin's going to cease to exist. That might be a viable plan. Another viable plan is, I did a little Twitter thread about the possibility of repatriating like quadrillions of dollars from offshore accounts. Because these squirrely billionaires, when you see like, oh, this guy's worth $2 billion in like the Forbes 500 list or whatever, that guy's probably worth like $30 billion because he offshored so much money is not being counted towards his net worth because it's all in shell accounts and shell companies and, foreign accounts and stuff like that. But, they take their ill-gotten gains, the money they steal, the money they take, whatever, and they stick it in bank accounts in Belize and Panama and British Virgin Islands and the Caymans and the Bahamas and Cyprus and where all these tax havens are all over the world. And that cash then goes into hedge funds and it gets reinvested. So these squirrely billionaires, they could be warlords, oligarchs, drug dealers, you name it. A lot of bad people put their money in these offshore accounts to hide those assets from the prying eyes of governments and authorities all over the world. All that money gets put back into hedge funds, gets reinvested into Citadel, gets reinvested into Melvin, gets reinvested into Susquehanna and all these other groups. So you have a lot of really scary people whose money is back in the U.S. market via foreign investment from the Caymans and elsewhere. And if these hedge funds get obliterated, all that money that was stolen from us gets returned to us and repatriated to the United States. That money's been out there the entire time, but it hasn't been in the pockets of Americans. It's been making money in these offshore accounts. So that's one way we could get a bunch of our money back. Conversely, you have big groups like Citadel, which may have a bunch of investment from these Cayman accounts, right? And when they short sell, they could be taking their cash, putting them back into Cayman accounts as wholly owned subsidiaries or whatever in their shell companies. And when they get obliterated, they literally just cut ties with that subsidiary and set them adrift. And because that money's in a foreign account, it'll be really hard for regulators in the U.S. to get their hands on it. So this may be how Ken Griffin manages to steal a bunch of money from some of the scariest people on earth and either run away with it or pay for his life with it. Right? You know, you've got someone who's really scary like Abramovich, or you know, Dmitry Furtas, or I can't remember the name of all these oligarchs, or you know, someone from the Sinaloa cartel or whatever, and like, hey, Ken, I entrusted you with billions of dollars, and that money's gone from my account. So what I'm going to need from you is billions of dollars, or else we're going to make you eat and swallow your own penis. And Ken Griffin's going to go, hey, I have this account out in the Caymans. Have at it, boys. So, yeah. I'm trying to think what Ken Griffin's probably fighting a couple of wars right here, trying to keep Citadel afloat and trying to figure out an exit strategy for himself that doesn't involve being hand-fed his own penis. So, yeah. Wildcat Strike. If the billionaire class leaves the planet in spaceships, who is going to clean their phones? well, those Elon Musk brain chips by then, so that's you got going for you. I don't know who cleans brain chips at this point. I don't know. Okay. Where was I? Where was I in the chat here? Hoshi Gaming, Houston. Foot the bill. Well, oops, I missed. Oh shoot, I missed. Okay, sorry. Houston, what avoids short hedge funds from dumping their liabilities on one or three small hedge funds at Citadel by using market maker status to get more naked shares until it explodes, saving face and forcing taxpayers to foot the bill while giving themselves wings since they didn't know and it wasn't foreseeable? What would happen then? Thanks and aloha. That's kind of what we were talking about just a second ago. Serendipity. They may sacrifice someone to all of a sudden be like, I don't know how this small hedge fund that only had $20 billion of assets under management was somehow responsible for $600 trillion in mistakes we all made. But that's, you know, that's what you do. That's Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson baby powder, right? It's made from talc. The talc gets mined and there's lots of heavy metals, all sorts of horrible stuff in it. And for decades, you slap some talc on some baby butts, and the baby butt, nice and not sticky or whatever, and the baby doesn't get diaper rash. Cool. Problem is that talc got in people's lungs and caused mesothelioma and cancers and all sorts of things. And now they're getting sued. And for what was Johnson & Johnson baby powder for 100 years, all of a sudden got spun off into a separate company. And now the folks who are suing have to sue that separate company that has no assets for what Johnson & Johnson did to their lungs for the last 100 years. So there is precedent for making a sacrificial lamb. And that is kind of what I think ultimately is the smartest play for these hedge funds, is to just pick somebody to die. Someone's going to have to be sacrificed. Pride-wise, none of them want to be it, but everyone has their price. So they're going to go to one of these or several of these hedge funds. They're going to talk, and they're going to say, look here, Chet Cheddington IV, we're going to give you $1 billion cash to die. And the guy's going, but I don't want to die. And they go, Chet Cheddington IV, you're going to have to be the guy who killed the American economy. We're sorry. Hopefully there won't be prison involved, but we'll make sure you have $1 billion. Some offshore account or something, so that you have this golden parachute. You'll be hated by everybody, but you'll still be able to afford all of the prostitutes you want and the tropical island you'll retire to. He's going to go, oh, man. All right, I guess it'll have to be that sacrificial lamb. And they're going to dump all that stuff on him. I think that's the smartest play they can make at this point. Is they have to get the liability off their books in somewhere. And they just need to make it not themselves. Right? You always have a scapegoat. You know the person in power it's never their fault. It's always some underling who made a decision that and they get sacrificed. Meow meow. Do you think the Department of Justice will undo the sacrificial lamb technique of the hedges? This could devalue the dollar completely. It's financial treason. That's what we're waiting to see, because these RICO investigations, these RICO charges they'll be facing, all involve collusion. And so if they decide to make a sacrificial lamb, that is collusion and manipulation in the market. So it could implicate all of them. But if they don't do that, they still face collusion and manipulation and price fixing. So, that's where we're in game theory time. If you're going to face liquidation and prison for sure on one side, and you might face liquidation and prison on the other, or you might get away with it on the other side, you're going to do that other thing that gives you even that 5% chance of survival. That's human brain at work. So yeah. Think about if you're in that situation, right? You're committing a bunch of crimes. You're about to be investigated for those crimes. So your option is to commit some other crimes, and there's a 15% chance that if you commit those other crimes, your previous crimes go away. You're going to commit those crimes. You're going to dig that hole deeper because you got no other option. You're going to go for that tiny little light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, you count. That's how assholes work. And when I joke about being able to predict the future, but it's just because I know how assholes work. Assholes do what assholes do, which makes them incredibly predictable. So if I can think of these ideas, they've got people thinking of those ideas, because that's how assholes work. They're the most predictable people on the planet. Bullies do the bully thing all the time. And when they don't do the bully thing, then there's something even worse coming. Okay. Bill Coyne, the plan, never pay, ignore it never happened. They control the media now, don't they? Yes, it's cheaper to buy a publication or an author or a Reddit subreddit or 1,000 Twitter robots. It's cheaper to do that than it is to close their positions. So they're going to do that. Might cost a few $1 million to buy Twitter robots and articles on MarketWatch, but it's going to cost them trillions of dollars to close a position. So they're going to go with that cheaper thing now to try and spread FUD and get everyone to forget about it and pass the blame onto someone else. And that's how assholes work. They're predictable. Paratarian, Houston, what do you think will be the catalyst to MOASS? Also, which sci-fi trope annoys you the most as a man of science and stuff? I think GME Dividend is the catalyst right now. That's the only true catalyst we have. GME Dividend or market collapsing, whichever one comes first, that's what we're facing. Outside of that, just time. So that's why I put the GME Dividend as most likely catalyst at this point. Which sci-fi trope annoys you the most as a man of science and stuff? I talked about my problem with time travel, and that time travel also does not involve teleportation. Because if you travel back in time, yes, you may be able to travel back in time, but you're going to end up where the Earth will be, 100 years from now or whatever. Because the Earth is moving through space around the sun, and the sun is moving through the galaxy, and the galaxy is moving towards Andromeda. So there's a lot of factors at play to figure out not only when you're going to put someone in there, but where. Right? we're going like this around the sun, you could miss and plunk them down here, and then the sun keeps moving, whatever. So that they never talk about that in movies. Another sci-fi problem, just teleportation in general. I think I talked about this too. Like, our brains are basically RAM, like computer RAM. You turn off your computer, and in fractions of a second, all the information that's stored in the RAM disappears without the electrical charge pumping through there. And it's empty. Your brain, without oxygen and without the electrical impulses firing, all the information gets lost. You cannot recover the information. So if you're going to teleport somebody from one location to another, you have to maintain or conserve all energy in that system. So you can't just like scan all the cells inside of a person, spit it out and project all those cells on the other side without conserving all of the electrons and energy involved. Otherwise, you spit out this giant goo goo gaga baby that has to have its brain restarted and learn from stage one all the way through the rest of life. I wouldn't want to get spit out as a 40-year-old baby, losing all of my knowledge and everything I learned. That would suck. I'd do it all over again. Well, I might enjoy it, but by the time I learned everything again, then I'm an old man. I can't do anything with it. So if you're going to conserve energy, you have to conserve all energy. You can't just like pick and choose, which means you have your inertia, right? If you are on the Starship Enterprise and you're orbiting the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour, and you beam down to the surface in San Francisco, where the Federation headquarters is located, you're going to spit out of that machine at 17,000 miles an hour and just be red mist on the wall. So you can only transport from something to something that are traveling the same speed. Like, you could transport from like Seattle to, Santiago, Chile, because you're both on that curve of the Earth having the same angular momentum. But you couldn't transport from Seattle to the equator because the equator is spinning 400 miles an hour faster than Seattle is. And so you are going to like have a wall at the transporter place smack into you, and you're going to turn into red mist. So, yeah. I want a movie where it's the future and they try these things and it just is the worst disaster they've ever experienced in their entire lives, and it's so gross. And that's the punchline of the entire movie. That's what I want. Maybe that's what I use my MOASS money for. Matt Newton, thanks for all the Q&A, Houston, answering all my dumb Twitter questions. Soda and ramen for you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love it. I spend a great deal of my day answering you guys' questions on Twitter too. I try to answer everybody who sends me a DM, and there may come a time when I can't do it. The day after, so it's been Friday. So the day after they announced the dividend, when I woke up, there was like 200 DMs in my Twitter account. I was like, oh man. This is going to take me a long time to answer all these people back. I did. I eventually got it all done. It took me all day to answer everybody. But there may come a time when I just have to go, I can't do it anymore. So, yeah. There you go. All right. Okay. Okay, where are we? Okay, there's Rising from the Dead question. Crispy also says, I also have what looks like CUSIP only tickers with $0 value. That's crazy. How many penny stocks were you playing with there, Crispy? I'd love to see like what those all are. Can you track the CUSIP number? Does it show you the actual CUSIP number? Can you track it and see what it ties to? Like just Google it and see if it ties to an old stock or something. That'd be interesting. Tadas Mikalauskas Hope I said that right. Houston, what are your thoughts on Ray Dalio's New World Order and China's time to rise? Numbers don't lie, but I'm skeptical about China. I got sent that video and I was supposed to watch it and then I didn't. I need to watch that video. So I can't quite answer on the video. China does have the opportunity to become sort of a global leader, but, and there's a big but involved, people don't want to be led by China. They'll take their money, they'll take their development, but they know the implication means less democracy for them in the end. And that is, that's kind of a sword hanging over their head there. And China is so dependent upon exports that if they can make it so the Chinese yuan is a global currency, they may be able to export currency at that point. But right now, people don't actually want it. They'll trade it for dollars or euros. And China is so dependent upon international trade that if they piss off their consumers, which is basically the EU and the US and North America, if they piss off their consumers and they somehow stop buying from China, whether it's via sanction, embargo, whatever, then China's toast. China's so inherently dependent upon the import of dollars and euros that if that import of that hard currency stops, China economy doesn't exist anymore. So I'm going to have to watch that video. I need to watch that video. It's got sent to me like 4 times. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch it. And I just forgot to watch it. So I can't answer further on that, but that's as far as I can go. Project Sun asks, ever seen a documentary, A Murder of Crows? Extremely interesting how intelligent they are, and they know to hold vendettas against people. Oh yeah. The TED Talk by the professor from UW on that was really enlightening. It's probably 10 years old now. But he talked about how the crows would remember people's faces and their smells, and they would teach their children about them. And so he had sent out like undergrads to go capture crows so they can put, tags on them and whatnot. And those crows would remember those students and would attack them. And the students would come back to campus 10 years later, and the crow would be like, I know you, and attack that person. So now they have to put like Ronald Reagan masks on and cover themselves in Chanel No. 5. When they capture the crows have no idea who they are. And then he built this thing, this crow vending machine, which I thought was awesome, where this big machine had a basket, and the basket was a bunch of peanuts and some coins. And the crows would come, land, take some peanuts, awesome. Eventually there'd be fewer peanuts and more coins. They'd kick around the coins, try to find peanuts, and if the coin fell into this bin, into the machine, a peanut would come out. And the crow went, holy shit, no way. And so the crows started flying all over Seattle looking for loose change. And they'd find quarters and pennies and everything else, and they'd drop it into this bin to get peanuts back. And before long, the crow vending machine was making like $500 a week off of crows who were flying around the city, finding change or stealing it or whatever. Fantastic. And I just read a tweet from somebody who fed crows crumbs, and if you feed crows, they start bringing you gifts, trinkets and nice pieces of glass they find and stuff. And I guess they brought them a $20 bill they found. So they brought a $20 bill to this person. The person was like, what? No way. And they gave them a whole bunch of bread. And now the crows are bringing them like hundreds of dollars a week, and they have no idea where they're getting the money from and who they're stealing it from. But so they now have like an army of crow bandits stealing money all over America for this person. And I think that's rad. Crows are rad. I need to watch that movie though. I've only seen like the TED Talks and read some articles on how just awesome crows are. I had a crow for a brief bit when I was a kid. It had a broken wing, and I mended it and it hung out with me for a while, and then it flew away one day. But okay. Unpaid overtime. The sacrificial lamb would have to be outside of DTCC, right? Otherwise, the lamb would drag everyone in the hole with them. You might be right. They may find some fund from Brazil or the Caymans or something to put this all on. That's a good point. Yeah. So Citadel, if you're watching my show, we're giving you all of your great ideas for how you might be able to get out of this. I don't know. At any rate, you can use it all as long as you pay me. As long as you pay a boatload for my shares in the end, I don't care what you do. Just give me my money so I can retire. Kelly KX Houston, what do you think of BECU Credit Union, and or how do you pick a good credit union? Yes, I live in the Seattle area. There are sketchy credit unions, or pretty much they're all cool. As far as I know, all the credit unions are cool. I have lots of friends who are BECU, and one of my friends was in one of their ads for quite a while. You'd see her face on billboards and stuff. It's pretty cool. My best friend uses BECU. They've had no problems. Got their home loan and everything through them. I just don't have, like, where I am on Bainbridge, there are no credit unions on the island. Our last credit union left, Kitsap Credit Union left, and now it's a pain in the ass to get there. So I'm stuck using banks at the moment. But I'd love to actually have everything in a credit union instead of a bank. But credit unions are owned by their members, and they're not going to give you crappy fees because they're not trying to make a profit. And, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Meow meow. For everyone, Ray Dalio is Chicken Little. He throws so many darts at the board, but I've never seen his stuff verified. Quick sell it all. Okay, good to know. Jontor Gritdal. Hi, JT from Norway here. Big fan of your channel. Wondering how many shares in additional to the real 76.34 million there are of GME, and Dividend by how many owners? And how do you know for sure? We don't know for sure. There's a few metrics folks have used to try and calculate how many synthetics are out there. The original was the Swedish government requires a census of stocks traded. And in that census, they list how many folks in Sweden own GameStop and what percentage of total global ownership that is. And so you could take that data and extrapolate it for the globe. Oh, well, if Sweden has, I don't know, million shares and they represent 0.25% of global ownership, well, you just extrapolate that and it becomes, 400 million shares or something like that. Germany did something similar. And we extrapolated that and also showed that there was like hundreds of millions of shares. And then it came time for polling. So Get It Got has done 3 polls so far. It got more precise each time, as well as a control poll for ownership in Apple. And what he was able to show all 3 times is that it put the estimate of shares, this is just of American owners, it put the estimate of shares claimed to be owned by Americans between 400 million and 900 million shares. That's kind of like where that range is. Consistently showing. And so you extrapolate that to the point where, okay, so 40% of shares traditionally are foreign and foreign investment, and that puts it at 1 billion to 1.4 billion shares in claimed ownership for just GameStop out there. Again, we don't know for sure. All we have are these estimates, but it does suggest that there's a lot more out there than what is claimed by the hedge funds. So we won't really know until MOASS, really. That's kind of until we see how many shares trade during the actual MOASS, that volume over 2-3 weeks or whatever total, that will finally give us like a good idea of how many synthetics were out there. And we just have no way of knowing until then, unless there's some sort of massive recall that happens before that for everybody, not just for those who lent their shares out. But yeah, I mean, I was guessing last March, February, whenever I wrote the true market cap value of GameStop thing on RGME, I think it was RGME back then. But I was basically calculating, like, you have your market value of based upon your 76 million shares at $155 a share or whatever it's trading for today, right? And that puts it at 13 billion and somewhere in that range. But if it's $155 and there's 1.4 billion shares out there, we go to the calculator again. Turn off Chrome, turn off Paint. Calculator. Okay, there we go. So if we've got 76 million and whatever shares at $155, then a market cap of $11.7 billion. Okay. Okay. If it's 1.4 billion shares that are actually trading and people are claiming ownership, then that puts a market cap at 217 billion, which means right now, pre-squeeze, if you have a legit share in your account, right? You have it's DRS or you just happen to be one of the folks in a brokerage account that has a real share, not a synthetic. You have one of those 76 million shares. Then each one of those shares is technically worth $2,855, based upon the fact that the float has been so diluted and there's so many shares out there that if all those shares blinked out of existence due to current demand for GameStop stock, your share is worth $2,855. And that's pre-squeeze. That's before the forced buying happens and the price rises even more. So that the true market value of these shorted companies is much larger than the listed market value because their floats have been diluted so much. And so that's something I like to keep in the back of my head as like what the true value is. And that's why, we saw those weird glitches where someone would transfer their shares from, I don't know, Robinhood to Fidelity or whatever, and they would get this glitch that their cost basis for their shares would be $3,000. That's probably why. Because in order to get one legit share, they probably had to buy 10 to 20 of them, right? Like they bought shares. Oh, here's a real one. I can transfer that over to Fidelity now. Okay, and I gotta buy more. So it probably cost them $3,000 just to find one legitimate share they could transfer to the other brokerage. So that I think that's why those folks had those crazy cost bases that were so high. Monkey, you are just going to town on yourself today. What is up, buddy? What's up? You were just gobbling that self. Yeah, chill out, babe. Chill out. I know you can do it, so stop showing off. Yeah, okay. Sorry, the dog's just... Reminds me of an old joke. Two guys are sitting around. May have told this joke. I tell this joke all the time. Two guys sitting on the porch, drinking beer. One of the guy's dog starts going to town itself. And the guy says... I wish I could do that. And his friend says, I can. He's my dog. Okay. Reportedly stupid. Hey, Houston. So Mars is a big red turd that will kill you. Is there anything of interest on Phobos, Deimos, H3, anything else? Well, Phobos. Phobos. I don't think Phobos is I think Phobos is just a rock. Phobos. I don't think it's a metal asteroid. It's a captured moon on print the Chrome back on. I think it's just rock, so probably not anything of too much value there. Composition. No, similar to Mars surface. So it might be a piece of Mars that coalesced up there. So it's rock. So but now there's nothing. There's nothing there. As far as Deimos, of course I misspelled it. Deimos also looks rocky. Composition, physical characteristics. Yeah, carbonaceous chondrites. It's rocky. There's not going to be anything mineable on that one either. So no, you're not going to get anything out of that. You may get a little H3, but it's going to be so expensive to get there and mine it and bring it back that may as well just focus on the moon. I'm sure most of these things that don't have atmospheres will have collections of H3. It won't be as dense as it is on the moon because the moon is so much closer and has a larger surface area. But yeah. It's pretty light. Only 1.47 grams per cubic centimeter. So there you go. Okay. And so just jumping from DMOS, you can also achieve escape velocity. That's pretty rad. So no, nothing too much work there. Might as well just focus on the moon. Focus on the moon first, then near Earth asteroids. That's where the money's going to be. Okay. Oh, 417. Okay. Sorry for the short show today. And I didn't get to a lot of questions. 1,000 apologies. But I got to get ready because I'm going on to Cosmic Lightning Warriors show here in 13 minutes. So, yeah. So sorry I did not get to. I missed like an hour's worth of questions. I may do. I might do a late night GeoGuessr. So come over to the Twitch stream if you're awake at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock Pacific time. I might do some GeoGuessr, and I can try to answer more of your questions there in a more intimate setting with Google Earth Street View, taking us around the world. Okay, and 1,000 apologies. Come over to Cosmic Lightning Warriors channel and ask your questions there if I missed them. Sound cool? All right. Until then, I'll see you in 12 minutes over on his channel. All right, everybody. And otherwise, I'll see you for what day is Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. See you for Friday's show. Cool? All right. Peace.